recording button on as well. And before we start today, oops, there is someone else coming in. Hello, Dan. How are you today? Good to see you here in Zoom. And so I'm also recording it just in case you wonder, so that I can post it later as a podcast as well. Yeah, that's what we do. We do it. We do like I think I'm challenging my system so far. See, it might break in a few seconds. I'm just saying, just saying. Hello, you guys. I haven't seen you for. I think we skipped. We skipped the Plays 2 week. Yeah, we skipped Instagram. I am. I am. Oh, I see myself live on Facebook. It's I am. Hey, hello, this is Shah from the podcast Thrive Not Survive After Child Abuse. I am doing both podcast and Facebook Live and Zoom simultaneously, as I always do on Tuesday. So if you follow me on Zoom, it's called The Place. So do that. And if you just, hang out on Facebook, then that's cool too, right? Which is The Place. Hopefully that all goes well. And the topic of today is the 4 level of consciousness. So that sounds pretty abstract, but it actually is not that abstract at all if you listen to me. Let me start you off with saying that I made a long trip, and that's why I just was not on the place for a few weeks. So in case you have missed me either on Facebook or you missed me on I am on Facebook Live. I'm just checking if I'm on Facebook Live. And let me just very quickly also answer some people's question here as well. I'm Monique. Can you send a message to Monique? She wants to join Zoom. Irene. Yeah, you can do that too. All right, you guys. So I interrupted my flow a little bit, right? I've been away for a trip. It was for a big part because of my birthday. Yeah, you can still wish me happy birthday if you want to. I think you can do that the whole month of November because my birthday was November 9th. And so I made a little trip on that, but it also had, the purpose of recharging the inspirational battery, so to speak. So I did that as well. And I think I came back. You can tell me if I look incredibly young now, because then it worked. It worked. If I look very young, it kind of worked, right? I also sent an email from a new email browser. So if you received an email and you looked at Facebook, I have a little question for you right there. You see me standing beside a mountain, and it's called the Devil's Tower. And if you know in what movie that is used, just type it into a Facebook Live, or if you are here on Zoom, type in what movie that's from, and then you get extra bonus points. Yeah, if you get extra bonus points, if you know what movie the Devil's Tower was featured in. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. So just type your answer in the chat. Irene says I have no clue. That's not the correct answer. I'm not sure if that's even a movie title. But no idea. That's what Irene says. Okay, so maybe later on in the chat or in Facebook Live, if you want to follow that, Irene, of people who are answering the question right there, what is the movie it was from, then you can let me know that. But if you also know who was the director of that movie, that's when you get extra point. And last but not least, give me the name of the main character. the male main character in the movie. All right, you can find it on the internet. If not, then let's start. I'm just saying that to you because actually it had a purpose. Um, all right, everyone wants to know now what the price is, of course. Yeah, okay. That is going to be a secret because people ask. If I say you can win $1 million, I'm sure everyone's doing his utmost best. So everyone is driven by greed, right? But if I just say, hey, you get eternal fame, right? Then it's not. No, Google is not cheating at all. Google is not cheating. I mean, nowadays people, if you say you don't know an answer, then people say, what? You don't know? You never heard of Google? You just have to be a little bit inventive. Actually, you can now just put a picture in Google and it tracks down where it's from, if you know how it is, right? So it's greed, which brings me back to another movie, and I'm not doing a movie trivia today, but if you know who said greed is good, you can actually, yeah, I don't know. I have all kind of useless information in my head, right? But greed is good. That is from the movie Wall Street, right? And Mr. Michael Douglas won an Oscar for that, for his role in Wall Street. It's a movie out the 80s or something. A very good movie, either way. And then there came a sequel out there in the early 2000s with Shia LaBeouf, which is also incredible. But anyhow, it has nothing to do with the topic of today. So let's get on with the program, guys. Hey, Monique, I can see you. Oh, no, I know that you're here, but I didn't see you yet on video. Not that you have to, by the way, but just saying hi. So my trip was, among other places, it was to the Devil's Towers. At the end of the session, I will tell you what the correct answer is. But one of the reasons I went there is because my best friend Natalia, she follows a guy named Sadhguru. You can see him on the internet. He's one of the famous yogis that we at the moment have, and yogis are those leaders in the yoga community, but not only in the yoga community, but also in the inspirational community. And they are, enlightened person, so to speak, right? A yogi, right? They are very famous. But Sadhguru is one of the big ones. I think he has about 1 billion followers or something crazy like that. There's like insane amount of people follow him. But and then he has a harder core. But one of the things he did in the last year was actually going to the Devil's Tower. And what he noticed there, or what actually he said, was it's one of the two energy places that could help you with opening your throat chakra. Maybe soon I will do a whole session about chakras, but one of the things that he was saying was opening your throat chakra. Now, if you have been following me for a while, then I made another connection between communication and the level how you can serve the world, right? The better you can use your voice, but it could also be in writing, by the way. It could also be in other ways. So let's take the word communication. Yeah, the better you know how to communicate, the better actually you can serve the world. And in a few weeks ago, actually it's probably a month ago already, I did a whole series about business mastery. And the thing that I started with is how can you up your level from going just, making money from a salary to making, coming to a different level of wealth. And also there you can find back that on the third level is actually the second level was managing, and the third level is using your voice to make money. And it's not only about money, it's about wealth in the broadest sense of the world. And it's a little bit what I'm doing right now. I'm reaching more people than I'm just one-on-one. Does that make sense? So strangely enough, that came together there as well. So I was a little bit busy with that. So I thought, oh, that's an interesting place to go there. And then if I go there, I truly want to feel like, oh, do I feel my throat chakra opening up and stuff like that. So I was sitting on top of that mountain, floating a little bit around it and stuff like that, and nothing happened. But no, that was not not true. Actually, it was a really amazing experience there. So I made a podcast straight from well, you could not go on top of the mountain unless you're a professional climber, but I did a podcast from close to the mountain. I was sitting there, and one of the things that you could hear there when you were sitting, the sound truly resonated slightly different than in any place that I've heard before. So um, I think there was more going on than actually I suspected there. So um, so that you type that into Google nowadays, you can do that easily, right? Um, but this is just Jean's way of looking at the world of the four levels of consciousness, very connected to the trip that I made. And I already made this teaching available on my podcast, but I want to go a little bit deeper into that with this group. Hello, Aida, I see that you are joining as well. So typically how this works, Aida is new in our group. I just do a talk for about 30 minutes, and then after that we spend a little bit time discussing the topic that we have been through, if you want to, on Zoom as well. And the first part is always a recording, right? All right, so I was talking about the four level of consciousness that that I had. Elizabeth is joining as well. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome here on the place. We were talking about the four levels of consciousness, and so let me start with the first one. Yeah, the first level of consciousness is we all need to go through that, and you need to go fully through that. And you will understand later on what that means. The first level of consciousness is about the me. It's just about me, myself, right? And if you think about when you were an infant, right, and you just first come to your awakening level, right, the first thing you start to become is a little bit more aware about yourself. You start to look at your hands, and you put your hands in your mouth, you put your feet in your mouth. I mean, that would now be very not so easy for me right now. So I can put someone else's food in my mouth, but that would be disgusting. But that's something else. Sorry, I always say kind of weird things when I do these things. But if you're an infant and you're laying down in the crib, then you start to become aware of yourself. That's your whole world, right? You become aware of the me. It's not a qualification, but it's just my lack of words. Is you have some sort of a good consciousness and you have some sort of a negative consciousness, right? You have some sort of a positive energy in the world, and hence you also have a negative energy in the world. The moment you qualify something, you will notice that there is always an opposite. And sometimes we only use that for teaching, right? Because energy just is, right? There is no positive or negative. It's just the way we use it. Does that make sense? So same thing with consciousness. It's the way we use it, right? But it's a little bit easier if I use these kind of, opposite things to say: positive, negative, good and right, left and right. Same thing, right? Black and white. So here it's the same thing. First, consciousness. You need to be become fully aware of yourself before you actually can grow into the next conscious level. But there are two things in there. Number one is you cannot fully grow into it. And secondly, you can also not go to the next level. So there are two ways where this could be kind of slightly wrong, so to speak, right? And remember, it sounds like a qualification, but it's a little bit more to explain. At some point in time, it starts to understand, ooh, there is something else besides me, right? There is a mom and a dad, they don't know how that works, but miraculously, in the first years when you're a baby, you get, if you are growing up in a nice family, by the way, then you suddenly have food in front of you. You don't even think how that happens, right? But it does happen, and you have food in you. If you as a child, you just walk into a room and suddenly the light goes on. You don't know that mom or dad does that. You have the trust to step into the world without even asking what's going on, right? That is when you have a strong consciousness of the me, and you start to develop a consciousness of the we, right? And first it's a very small circle, right? But little by little, you start to extend your circle. You go to the school and you get friends and you have, and we call that a little bit your tribe. And before you know, you start to develop a consciousness of people outside your tribe, right? And strangely enough, we have a lot of development of that and a lot of sense of circles. We don't mention them, but if someone would say something, you can talk smack about your own family, but if someone else talks about smack about your family, you get angry, right? Everyone knows that feeling, right? You say, oh, my sister is this and that. And then you say, yeah, I agree, your sister is a bitch. You say, what do you say about my sister? Right? You can, I can say that my sister is a bitch, but you can't say it, right? So that's when you talk smack about your own family, but other people cannot talk smack about your family. So that's that feeling. If you play sports, then, let's say you play soccer, we say in the Netherlands we say just football, right? But could be and then one city plays against the neighbor city. That's always, we call that a derby. That's always. Then suddenly the world champions happen, and then suddenly we're all for the Netherlands, and we all dress up in orange. And if you're Dutch, right, we're all yelling for the Netherlands. And go what? The national teams could be partly from the team from Amsterdam and team from the Netherlands. So we suddenly change our consciousness of the we, right? But we always have the feeling, and that's where human beings stay a little bit poor. We always get strong in it if there's another we, right? Which we call they, right? So if the we can be very small, but we can be very big. Let's think about the national championship of soccer, and it's all about the Netherlands, and it's not only about my small city, and it's not all about my family. So the we can expand a little bit, but it expands, and it's the strongest when we also see a they, right? And you see that we are still very poor of it. Poor in the things. We always feel there needs to be some sort of an enemy for us to grow strong. Does that make sense? That's where we can grow stronger in our consciousness, right? I sometimes say maybe we should get invaded by, aliens from Mars or something, because then we finally see that as a human beings we should, work together instead of working against each other. And the second thing I try to convey is always put your life, your me, in service of other people, namely the we and the they. And then the world might be getting a better place. So that's your second conscious level. That's already a little bit more complex. Do you see that? I call it the consciousness of the we. Some people call it the consciousness of the tribe, of other people. I just make it very simple. You have the consciousness of the me, and then you have your consciousness of the we. Now, I promise you to also talk a little bit about the good and the evil in the world, right? Now, the good in the world, the good energy in the world wants us to grow through all conscious levels, right? It wants us to rise up and become enlightened, right? In the beginning of the place of today, I was talking about this person, Sadhguru, and he is, one of the big yogis, and he talks a lot about that. He talks a lot about put your life in service of other people, right? And that's how you become enlightened and you rise to a higher level of consciousness. You're not becoming a better person by doing that, by the way. You just make the world a better person when you do that, right? So then you go from a me consciousness through the we consciousness into what I called a world consciousness. How can you make the world a better place? When you start to ask yourself those kind of questions, you actually are more world conscious. If you think only about how can I make myself better, right? And that's at time a really good question, by the way. If you're sick, right, make yourself better first. If you're poor, make yourself a little bit more rich first before you think about the other things. But at some point in time, you start to maybe make a concern about how can I make the world a better place. Now, here we have to be very careful, people, because your answer might not be the same as any consciousness, but my we consciousness, not so strong, right? Because I can only see the world in the way how I want to see it. Now, another thing is I could be completely be against weapons and murder and war, and well, we should all be against murderers, by the way, but war. But other people believe that's the way how you defend the we. Doesn't make them right or wrong, or doesn't make me right or wrong. We just have a different opinion in seeing the world, right? So sometimes the way we execute our own visions might be slightly different. We are not strong enough to really make a decision what's right and wrong yet. Does that make sense? So maybe we should try to seek to understand first before we ask understanding of our own opinions first, right? That's a strong consciousness of the we. Now I transfer myself and hopefully other people into becoming more consciousness of the world we live in. And here was the thing. When I was traveling around in the what we call in the US the Midwest, you know, those are states like Utah and I think Nevada is already the South, but Wyoming and what else have you there? Those states, you know, we call that the Midwest, and there's a lot of space, by the way, in the Midwest, like in Texas. But the beautiful thing is there's a lot of untouched space. And one of the things that I saw, and I'm a city boy, by the way, I'm a city slacker, right? City slicker, not a city, well, maybe slacker too, but if you know a little bit English language, that's a funny way of saying things. But I'm a city slicker, right? I love cities, but actually what I saw is how much ugliness we as human beings can produce. It's not only the garbage that we throw out, but just sheer the buildings, like it's completely tasteless. And I'm not talking about, you know, the difference between what you think is beautiful and what I think is beautiful. You know, I'm seeing randomly buildings in the middle of a nice landscape, completely tasteless. We put out there. So we human beings, and I'm part of it, so I'm not pointing fingers, we are not so world conscious, right? We put a lot of ugliness out there. And the more, and I needed to travel to see that and to become a strong forefighter for putting more beauty out into the world, right? Now, I'm lucky, I grew up in old cities in Europe, and to whatever standards there is, there are beautiful old buildings there. And doesn't mean that new buildings cannot be beautiful. I think new buildings can be beautiful too. But the older cities, for some reasons, they were crafted with a little bit more sense of environment than the new, often American cities. I love the United States, by the way, guys, so it's not a comment there. But if you travel from California, which for a lot of people who are not from the United States think that California is such a beautiful state, you are hugely mistaken. It's ugly if you drive over the highways there. I went from Santa Clara. I went to the airport in San Francisco, and that's when you pass Microsoft, you pass Apple, you pass Google, and you pass Facebook. Those four companies, the biggest companies and richest companies in the world, their own campuses look beautiful, but the whole environment around is just horrible to see. And there might be people in there, by the way, so I don't know them, so I hope they call me right now and say, Jean, you're wrong, but I don't see a lot of earth consciousness, because those four companies together could make California, or at least that place around San Francisco, the most beautiful place, at least from a human point of view, as there is. It could be super clean, no people who are living on the street at all, easily. Not because they have the money, because they have the manpower, and because they have the money and they probably have the brains to do it, but you don't see it. Does that make sense? Right? You don't see it. And again, was just an observation. I thought that's kind of weird, right? It's I think Apple at the moment is now the richest company in the world, and the campus is gigantic. It's just a whole city, and it's beautiful. But the environment around it, oh my gosh! Sometimes I think that the highways in Texas are dirty, but that's nothing compared to those there in California. And then just you drive a day into the Midwest. And in Idaho, for instance, and it's all gorgeous. It's like, it's rough, and then once in a while you see very ugly things like an oil field in Utah or something. You're like, oh my gosh, Utah is so beautiful with Salt Lake City and stuff like that. Yeah, a very beautiful place. But you also have like around Casper, I believe, you have this and Prosper. You have this oil fields, and they're just ugly. We produce a lot of ugliness in the world. Think about Earth consciousness. Do you know that if we keep going like this, that the last 5 generations destroy more than all the millions of years that the Earth had done to build this up? Something we need to think about, right? For instance, bees are about to be extinct. Bees. Now, if we die, we as human beings, the bees will be still there, right? But if the bees dies, we will be done in less than 25 years. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not becoming some sort of a strong environmental fighter that I've never been, and I probably will never be. But I want you to teach you and think about more about Earth consciousness. What can you do to be more Earth conscious? And if we start to understand that this little globe that we have, that is somewhere in a cul-de-sac that we called our solar system, right? In this gigantic universe, and that we are capable of, making that one of the most beautiful places you can find, or destroy it in just a few generations. That's our choice, and it's as much as my choice as your choice. It's not only the choice of the rich people or the poor people or whatever, or the politicians or the military or the church or whatever. It's our choice, right? So if we need to get out of the me most of all, and I promise you to talk to you a little bit about the evil in the world. The evil, yes, it is an abuse, because I'm a strong fighter against it and abuse. It is against murder. It's where the biggest evil is. It's that pure concentration constantly that it is about me, me, and me. Because if we keep doing that, you will see a rise in suicide. You will see a rise in depression. Yeah, you will see more and more that. And unfortunately, dear Facebook, that is what you are doing. You put so much emphasis on the me, because it's my profile, it's my pages and all. I'm using Facebook too, by the way. The tool in itself is maybe not wrong, but the way the tool is used by us, and maybe it's also by the algorithms that Facebook puts out there, is let's put a lot of concentration on me. And I know for a fact that the people that are listening right now struggling a lot about being happy with me. Don't figure out how to be happy with me. Figure out how to be happy with other people, right? Do that. Do something, right? That makes you happy. I can guarantee you that makes you happy. Binge watching network does not make you happy. It makes you pass time. Does that make sense? Going out there and picking up plastic will make you happy if that's something for you. Fighting abuse, if that's something for you, makes you happy. Fighting inequality in life, that will make you happy. So get first to that second level, and then you can go to that third level of Earth consciousness. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit on a rant here, but I felt it was necessary. And then you have a fourth level of consciousness. I'm sure you're curious now. Okay, what is the fourth level, John? What is the fourth level? The fourth level is a little bit more abstract, and we call that, or I call that, the consciousness of the universe. Because if first it is me, and then it's us, right, and then it's the world, then probably what we do, it's just a logic. Thinking about the logic, in the end has an effect on the universe. We just don't know it because our consciousness is so low that we don't even know that what we do could in the end have an effect of the entire universe. And a lot of people say, I don't care, man. I'm just caring about myself first. But what if I tell you that if you have kids and you don't care right now, that there is no Earth to take care of anymore? Seriously, there is no humankind. The humans are the only one that can make conscious decisions as we do, and we constantly make them wrongly, and we have proven that over the last 100, 200 years. Not longer than that. How crazy is that, right? We are capable of how do you say that, of murdering. Children are coming from. Then we say, the flowers and the bees, but I can guarantee you in a few years that story might not be there anymore. Anyhow, and that's the consciousness of, fourth level is the consciousness of the universe, which I also sometimes call the divine consciousness, and that is that everything that we do is actually interconnected. Now, if you bring this all back to really strong topics that are going on right now, and I take COVID-19, and I always promise to not talk about it so much, but I never succeed. I'm sorry about it. But we don't know anything about this virus, right? And this virus is and what we do, what our reaction do is we need to do social distancing. I'm all about that. But we also have to see, I know people who have been very, very careful and still got affected by disease. There is no way we can stop these things by only isolating ourselves, right? Because before you start to walk in a bubble. And I'm all for social distancing, trust me, right? I would think we need to stop this virus, we need to find something. But some people get completely into panic if you only look at them already nowadays, or if you accidentally come too close, they kind of like, and you could already see that. And by the way, guys, this is what I saw, and I'm not taking the United States as an example, and that's the only example because this might have been going on in the rest of the world as well, but I don't know. But I saw when I came to the United States, one of the first things that I saw is that people are germ phobics here. They just like, oh man, they don't touch each other anymore. They do something that is so against our nature, and that is humans touch each other in a normal way, right? And I'm not meaning in a weird way, in a normal way. That's a normal thing, and that shouldn't harm us. Actually, to constantly try to make an environment super clean and kill all the germs around us actually will be the death of this planet, or at least of the human race. I can guarantee you that, and if you want to, actually I can even back that up with research as well. So, but what you do when you're, how do you call that, a germaphobe? Is that how you say that? Or can any American tell me if I use the correct word here? You isolate yourself more and more. And think about all these things that you do to isolate yourself more will put you only in the me consciousness and will never make you grow. Does that make sense? So evil in the world will try to make us believe that that's a good thing, right? Yes, you need to be clean. I'm all for that, right? I'm a little bit of a clean phobe myself, right? But to a normal level. Yes, you need to develop yourself as well. Remember episode, what was it, 10, Irene, I think, or something, or I mean one of my later, maybe 30, one of my later, find it back if you want to, where I did a whole episode on my podcast, is that self-love is a lot of bogus. It's like a lot of bullshit. You don't need to love yourself first before you love someone else, right? In fact, it's the other way around. Start loving someone else first before you love yourself, because it's only through the love of someone else that you can find true love, right? So that's a little bit what's in the details of this message. 4 levels of consciousness, a little bit heavy topic maybe. Me consciousness, we consciousness, earth consciousness, and the consciousness of the universe, right? All right, that was my message for today. If you want to hang out here in Zoom, we can talk about it a little bit more. You can agree, disagree, you can ask questions and so on. For all the other people that are listening to me either on the podcast Thrive, Not Survive After Child Abuse, I will say bye-bye and I hear you tomorrow. And for the people on Facebook, same thing. Thank you for being on Facebook with me. I hope to see you next time. Next week is that. That will be the 24th, close to Thanksgiving, same time, right? All right. And then for the people on Zoom, don't hang up, because I'll be right